One day after the federal Liberals proposed a very strict gun law that would essentially ban handguns across Canada, reaction has been flooding in from various sectors of society, including people who have been personally harmed by gun violence, and people who are trying to stamp it out. Louis March is the head of Zero Gun Violence Movement and joins us now in Toronto. Louis, what's your reaction to this ban?
It's been 7 years in the making. So I was expecting a lot more in terms of really addressing the gun violence problem, but going deeper, a deeper dive into what's causing it and addressing what's going on. So in Toronto so far this year, we've had 159 shootings compared to this time last year. It's a 20% increase in number of shootings. That's more than one per day. Homicides, gun homicides, we've had 19. That's a 58% increase from what we had last year. So despite everything that's being done, the gun violence trends are trending in the wrong direction. The legislation that was proposed yesterday, if that was in play for the last year, would that have an impact on these numbers? Mm-hmm. The answer is no.
And why is that?
Because the guns that are used in criminal activity are not with registered gun owners, right? 82% of the guns found at crime scenes in Toronto are illegally smuggled guns across the border. Mm-hmm. Someone that's going to take up guns in a criminal activity are not going to be registered gun holders. Like, why would you? Mm-hmm. Right? So this deals with one aspect of the problem, but does it go deep enough? And it's not deep enough because what was blatantly missing yesterday was the provincial government and the municipal government. They all have different roles in stemming this problem of gun violence. One cannot do it without the other two working together. Mm-hmm. The feds have certain responsibilities in terms of border control. Yeah. The province has certain responsibility and the city has certain responsibilities. Doug Ford was not there because Doug Ford did not agree with much of what was said yesterday in terms of gun control.
What do you think should be done to address all the illegal weapons that are out there?
There's not a simple answer to it. We have the largest border with the biggest manufacturer of guns in the world. We can stop as many at the border as we can, but we can't tell you how many got through. Mm-hmm. The federal government says that they've been able to, they doubled the amount of guns that they stopped at the border last year compared to the year before. But they can't tell us how many they didn't stop. We used to have 1 and 2 guns in a community, Scott, that used to be borrowed, rented, stolen in criminal activity. I've got people working with me who are alive because somebody pointed a handgun at them and it didn't work. Like when you're renting a gun, you don't test it out, right? So now we have kids in the street with 1 and 2 guns themselves. Mm. And it's not handguns, it's semi-automatics, right? So it's a different type of gun culture.
Mm-hmm. Last question, what do you tell people who are deeply affected by this? I was speaking to, the mother of Caden Francis, who was killed last July, and she said that, obviously she's still heartbroken. What do you tell them about this push and about this effort?
They have to make their voices be heard. A lot of people, when you lose your children to gun violence, you retreat, you become an introvert. You don't think anybody wants to hear. But they need to hear the agony, the pain, the trauma, the grief that you are going through. Because we in Toronto, it's a resourceful, internationally acclaimed city. Mm-hmm. When we put our mind to something, we normally solve it. But we've never seen this as a priority. Right? It's been a priority only for political reason, mm-hmm. when it was necessary. So those people that have been impacted, don't give up. You need to make your voice be heard. Work with others that share the same pain and agony because they will understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. Organize, advocate. The government needs to understand that this is not a problem just for a small percentage of the population with criminal-minded intention. Look on the impact. Look on the destruction that you have created. It's difficult to encourage them because they're dealing with their own personal grief and trauma and pain.
And that's forever that they're dealing with.
Yes, this is not something where there's an on and off switch, right? But there's other people that have similar type pains and agony and grief and trauma. Work with them. Advocate, organize. Let your voice be heard. Because I don't think the politicians, whether they're at the feds or at the province, or really have listened. I know yesterday they had people who have been impacted, but I'm looking at them and I couldn't recognize most of them. And I work with mothers who have lost children to gun violence, right? So it seems as though it was more like a production yesterday, but the real people on the street that are grieving, that are hurting, right? There's nothing that we can do to take it away, but what we can do is advocate for change, legitimate change that will prevent the next cycle of violence from happening.
Louis, thank you very much.
No problem.